There are real people who might see this or might hear this argument where we say, hey, this is a lie, just read it. Just read it. It doesn't make the sense you think is being made when you hear somebody standing on stage not talking about this, but talking about a social issue which we can all relate to.
This is the kind of bias that's built into people, it seems. And I'm afraid of having the kind of bias that these polls are saying that I have. Where believers, it seems, don't want to correct. I'm going to believe what I'm going to believe, whether it's true or not, is what I keep hearing.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Nargis, why is it so hard to talk about religion sometimes?
They're afraid of you trying to convince them of new ideas.
Why is it so hard to talk about religion in public with people?
It's really not.
I believe in something, yes.
Okay, would you like to tell me what it is?
Bubble gum, food stamps, free parking.
I think it's difficult to talk about religion and politics because everybody has very different opinions.
I think people tend to just get very aggressive in the way that they feel about it.
There's so many different denominations and there's so many issues you run into with that. Like, it's doctrine.
That's why people don't talk about it that much, because they know they're going to have strain on the relationships with those around them. So they don't risk that.
What up, everybody? Arael Avinu here with Fully Deconverted, Disenfranchising Dogma, no authority on truth except for truth itself. You can find us on fullydeconverted.com and see everything that we got going on. We're about to publish some new member stories, people who have told about their versions of their own deconversion stories over on the Facebook group, and some of those we reach out to people and we ask them, hey, can we share your story outside of this group? And then we do, and we put it on the website, so we're about to publish a couple more of them, as well as some articles over there, so go check it out. Listen, we are grassroots, from the toe up, from the floor up kind of deal going on. So we are pushing content out as best we can. You know, us people who have jobs elsewhere as well, but decide still to pour our hearts into things like this. Not just this, but our Richard Carrier series that we got coming up that we're happily going to be launching around the second week of November. So stay tuned for that. Follow us. You can go check us out on Facebook, or if you want to see all the promos and everything when they do pop up, make sure to subscribe here on the channel. We have a 10-episode series again with Richard Carrier coming up. But today we have on Andrew from the Atheist Roundtable. So let's head over to him and talk religion. Bam, there we are. Bam, bam. Andrew, what's going on, my friend?
Hey, how's it going?
Ah, good. We can hear you. We were having a mic issue a little bit earlier, but then now we're good now.
If you were going to have equipment issues, I'm the guy that's going to cause you equipment issues.
All good, man. Andrew, introduce yourself to our audience and say a little bit about what Roundtable is and what it's done in the past.
So, I grew up as Catholic, as a Christian. I went to 12 years of private Catholic school from first through high school, right? And eventually, I made my way out. I found myself with an awful lot to say about it and not people to talk to. Like, I had my wife, right? But eventually, she said to me, you need friends. Somebody else. I can't listen to this anymore. You have to go away and talk about this somewhere else. You might pick up in this that I have a tendency to ramble, and I have a tendency to talk rather fast. And that's just kind of how I am. So I really needed an outlet, and that's how the Atheist Roundtable started. I needed a place to rant. I needed a place to just talk about things that I felt passionately about, especially when it came to atheism. I was a passionate believer. When I was a Catholic, I really, really believed it. I really needed it to be true.
Yeah.
And when I became an atheist, I needed something to be passionate about again. And I think that being passionate about what's real, right, about what's actually that can actually be demonstrated to be real, is far more rewarding and far more interesting than being passionate about magical sky daddies who want to torture you forever for thinking the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. I just needed a place where I could throw things out to the wind and ramble. That's real. It was all for me, right? Like the people who listen to the podcast, even though I haven't put out a podcast since May because life happened. But you know, I want to be. I love the fact that people listen to it, but it was really all for me. It was really all so that I could have some relief.
Yeah.
And if you get something out of it, then that's awesome too.
Good. So Andrew, you covered a lot of ground right there, and everything that you just said. But all right, let me just pick one. All right, and Andrew, you and I are just gonna chill. We're just gonna have the round table before us, and we're just gonna talk shop and see where this goes. But there's a great place I want to start, and it's a place that I'm kind of stuck at. I want to get your input. You indicated in your opening statement just there that one of the things that you value is the things that you can demonstrate to be true, and you kind of, now I'm going to put words in your mouth so you can correct me, and you kind of dismiss those things which are more fantastical in nature that perhaps some people find valuable, but you've realigned your values in your life to be that which, or those things which satisfies you are those things that are demonstrably true. But here's where I want to push back. Are we missing anything, Andrew? Because you found that you were without something, and you had to go, you know, to the online forums and to the podcasting forums and all that to be able to get an audience to listen, or for you to have an outlet to project your thoughts outwardly. Is that satisfying? What are we missing something there? Go for it.
So one thing that religion has done super well is give us a way to form communities, right? As humans, we love communities. We will form a community around anything. If you want to throw a leather ball 100 yards, we will form communities over the teams that throw leather balls 100 yards. That's what we do. We love that stuff. And the religion, churches make communities well, right? If I were a Baptist or a Catholic, right, and I picked up and moved to another town, I could audition different religious communities to find the one that I like, right? Where are those things for atheists? Right? There are maybe 2 atheist communities in my town, and I run one of them. If neither one of these communities fit you, and there's no reason why either one of them should, where do you go? How do you make those other connections? That's the thing that I think atheists need to work on more. This right here that you're doing is that, right? That's why this is important.
Yeah, nice. So we form communities, we run communities. Like, look at what we got going on. You know, there's Fully Deconverted, there's Atheist Roundtable, there's our other local secular free-thinking or atheist communities. And there's even, what's the church called, Andrew, that's like everybody's welcome?
The Unitarian Universalists?
Yeah, there you go. There's that, which I haven't visited that, by the way. Have you visited one of those?
So, yes.
All right. How is it? I want to know how that is.
Okay. So, look, I appreciate what the Unitarian Universalists are trying to bring to the table, right?
Yeah.
They want to keep all the religious trappings. I mean, all of the religious trappings. And keep things as secular as possible, and that is commendable. What I don't like about the Unitarian Universalists is eventually when we go to a church and we talk about things that are based on faith, we're going to eventually land on truth claims, right? We're eventually going to have to talk about what we believe to be true and why. And if you want to accept everything, do you really have a way of discerning what is true and what is not true?
Is that what happens at a Unitarian church? Or do they kind of like, hey, everything is true? Or do they kind of let you mesh or mold against whatever you want?
Do you remember that old story about how all the religious people are touching a different part of an elephant, right? And one person has a hold of the leg and they think it's a tree, and one person has a hold of it, think it's a snake. One person, you've heard this before?
Yeah.
Maybe? The thing about the person who thinks it's a tree and the person who thinks they're all wrong, right? They're all wrong. And instead of thinking that all of these people have a piece of the truth, right? Really what they've all done is come to the wrong conclusion about what it is they're touching. And I think that it's more important to know what it is that you're touching than to think that you've touched a piece of it and understand it.
All right, this is a great opening talk right here. Andrew, let's press pause for just a second. I'm gonna go over to the live feed and just say hello to everybody. What's up, Non Sequitur Show? What's up, Beach? How you guys doing? What's up, So Sweet? Have I got that right? Looks like you got a really cool icon there. Logic Beats, Speculation, Nick Thomas. What's going on, everybody? I just want to say hi over to the live feed. If you guys have ever been to a Unitarian church, I would love to hear about your experiences there. So go ahead and throw that in the comment, or if you're interested in checking one out, I would be interested to know who else is interested, because I kind of am. Andrew, back over to you, my friend. Okay, so you needed a place to go after your kind of deconversion experience and or thinking through what religion means to you and possibly everybody else, and you needed an outlet. And your wife was kind of like, hey, take that somewhere else, Andrew. Like, I'm so tired of hearing about it. And I can relate to that too, because I got a few close people to me who, when I was going through my deconversion experience, like, I didn't even know what I was going through, so I was just unloading it on everybody, right? But I realize that if you're like you, Andrew, and you're committed to the idea and you're in it to win it and you're invested, you've got that sunk cost right there, and you're kind of at that pivoting point. Like that can be a lot for another person to take on, especially if they're not maybe following the same way that you're following it. Why is that a lot for other people to handle, and how might people like you and I best negotiate that experience as well?
I feel like you're asking me life questions, and I also feel like I'm the worst person to ask life questions for. For me, I got lucky, right?
Yeah.
I know that there are people out there who really struggle with these things, and I got really lucky by having a supportive group of friends, by having people who my friends and I love to disagree. Okay, that's something that we do as friends. Some people bowl, some people play pool. We disagree. Okay, because that's the kind of person that I am, and that's the kind of person that I attract in my life. So I got really lucky having a whole bunch of people close to me in my life that were going to be able to support me and encourage me.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would have negotiated a lot of this without them. Particularly my wife, who is the foundation of all things that I do. I don't know how I'd put my pants on in the morning if she didn't go out and purchase them first, right? Because I suck at life. Okay, she lets me. She gives me the illusion of success by pushing me forward. But I am thankful and grateful to the people that were here that I got to lean on. Maybe one of our tasks as people who have come out, who are comfortable being out, is to just kind of pave the way for other people to do so, to make those communities, again, where people have a safe place to land and can have those communities around them when they need them.
Yeah, but Andrew, for atheists, free-thinking, secular, for groups like us, we're often seen, and we're guilty of this from my experience so far, we're often seen as people who just stand against something. We're against this, we're against that, we're against religion, we're against fairy tales. And sure, yeah, we cite science is the way, the truth, and the life, but not any more so than religious people do, who also think it backs up biblical claims. Are we shooting ourselves in the foot, Andrew, when we take our venting and our ranting against religion to the public forums, and we have nothing else to offer except for a shrug on our head, saying, you know what, I might not know the answers, but neither do you, and you deserve to disappear off the face of the earth. Meanwhile, they're saying the same thing back to us. Andrew, how do we negotiate this experience where we offer actual value to the marketplace of ideas?
I think atheism is good news, right? People call me atheist evangelical. I'm okay with that. I think there's an atheist gospel, if you will, right? Atheist good. It's good news that there is no God, right? That's good news. And while the Christian might tell you that the good news of salvation comes with this bad news of sin, I think this good news of no God comes with bad news of personal responsibility. I really think that I get that there's a lot of negativity in atheism, right? I get that people see atheists as naysayers, but I don't see atheism that way. I really see atheism as a positive, right? That it's great that we have to figure out our own morality, our own ethics, our own way of living. We have to do that. We don't have to do it alone, right? We get to do it together, all of us, whether we're atheists or Christians. We all get to participate in a bigger society of people, right? And that's good stuff. I listen, if atheists are always bashing religion, I wonder how Christians think about always bashing things like abortion and a woman's right to choose, or LGBT rights, or things like that, right? I wonder how that seems to look from their eyes, because they think, right, that they're working from a position of love, right? They want to love the sin and hate the sinner. And I don't think there's any reason to hate a sin. I don't think it exists, right? All we have to do then is just be nice to each other, do the second half, love the sinner, and we're going to make great progress together, right, as a group. And I don't think that religious people are mean or evil or stupid, right? Some of my best friends my family's religious. My mother is the most religious person I know, and she's my mom. You're not going to hear me say something bad about my mom.
Yeah.
But she's super religious, and she's really wrong on a lot of things. But that doesn't mean that that she still doesn't get to participate in this group idea of how we make a good society. And even when she's wrong, that doesn't mean that she can't bring that idea to the table. Because the only reason that we're ever going to get better is if we can know what a good idea looks like by contrasting it with a bad idea, right?
Yeah. So, but the part of the problem, though, a part of the complication and the dynamics between this worldview A and worldview B, one being a science-based philosophy and the other being a religious-based philosophy, is that they're fundamentally different in how they feel they should operate in the world. One says tough love by telling you a God said so, and the other says tough love by asking the other person to prove it, generally speaking. And as we've seen in our intro segment to this interview here, people kind of claim they want to talk about religion and it's okay, and some people admit that no, it's not okay. But then when you press it on them, they're kind of like, you know what? I can't believe you asked me that. And even religious people are notoriously bad at this. For a third party to come in, holding a known counter position, and asking them what they believe and why. This was my entire, that was a theme in my entire deconversion experience as someone who was producing documentaries at the time. So I'm not exactly sure, Andrew, I'm not exactly sure. I'm just simply not exactly sure that coming to the table with other theists and being like, listen, consider science. It tells us exactly everything that we know and nothing that we don't. But consider your perspective from a book, which isn't evidently true in the core claims. You know everything that can't be known. So how do we hold hands at a table like that, Andrew, with other people and walk forward, as you kind of indicate that we can, in a way where we're not absolutely divided with each other? Because they're just going to turn, you take one step forward, they're going to turn and be like, oh, I can't believe you stepped that way. We cannot condone this behavior. You cannot be trans. You cannot be sexually active this way. Abstinence is the answer. Marriage is the answer. Under God, Protestant, Reformation, Catholic, everything, All right, I've rambled on for a little bit. I'll let you pick up the torch from here. Like, how do we establish a true connection and move forward together?
Well, so what you're talking about is how do we? I think people have to have a way that they figure out what they believe versus what they're not going to believe. I mean, everybody does it, right? We just need, in order for us to become atheists, at some point, I think, we had to look at how we determined what was true and how we determined what was not true, right? Like when I was deconverting, I had to try to figure out, why do I believe things, right? And I think that a lot of people, when it comes to their religious beliefs, don't think about why they think that way. I was having a conversation earlier today with someone who is convinced that every time she gets the flu shot, she ends up in the hospital. And I was trying to explain to her that you cannot possibly get sick from the flu shot, right? That's not a thing, right? You're not getting active virus. You're not even getting whole dead virus, right? There's nothing in the flu shot that's going to make you sick. Now, and it's an awful lot like when you think people get more crazy on a full moon, right? You're just counting the hits and disregarding the misses. I think that what we just need to do is talk about how we come to the idea of what we're going to believe and what we're not going to believe. Look, nobody that I've ever talked to thinks that Odin and Thor are real gods, that Zeus is real, right? But everybody knows the story, right? Everybody has heard of Zeus and Odin. Most people have. Lots of people have heard of Zeus and Odin and Thor. There's at least one god they've heard of that they don't believe in. Well, how did you come to the conclusion that that god doesn't exist, right? Just imagine trying to use that process, whatever it was, on your God. Just imagine what that would be like. And I don't know that I would ever ask someone to actually do that, right? Because I'm not in the business of making atheists. I'm in the business of having people think about what it is they think about, right? Why is it that accepting that a guy died on a cross and came back to life is so easy to believe, but a dude with a flaming chariot and a magic hammer sounds obviously ludicrous, right?
So Andrew, I think we're touching on what we all think about. It's kind of like, once we go through the deconversion process, we look back, we're like, okay, that was silly of me. And then we look at other theists at present, and then, and then we kind of say things like, with our current vantage point, we would like other people to see it as clearly as we do. And we say, just look at it from my way. But the value in their life necessitates they must not. They must not look at it from that way. Because even the temptation to do so would strike them with guilt. So I struggle with that. Like, I love, right? We love throwing out just think of it this way. Like, you don't believe in Thor, but, people did at one point in time, 2,500 years ago or 2,000 years ago, maybe even then, probably not. But, and they were like, listen, to them it was completely normal. Or you take your Christian faith. 1,000 years ago, you would not be the Protestant which you are. You'd be something else. You literally wouldn't have the choice of the theology which you've inherited today. You literally just wouldn't have. It's not an option. But they exist today, and their value system has been established already. And it's one that, Andrew, for you and I, was taken out of our chest, right? And we're kind of left with that hole in that new vantage point that we, kind of crawled to. And then we look back and we're like, okay, I've made it a little ways. I can breathe now. I'm no longer in that fight, that dog fight right there. I'm to safety. Let me reevaluate what's going on. I've got my bearings. Hey, everybody, come over to where I'm at. But they're disoriented as soon as they realize they're in a fight, Andrew. And their adrenaline starts going, and they start realizing the shots are going right overhead. And safety is where they were taught their savior is, which is back on the other side of enemy lines. And they dare not cross that kind of like demarcation zone. And so I'm just not convinced that saying our position is better, here's why, actually holds value to somebody else who literally thinks their position is what's valuable, not the truth. All right, feedback.
Yeah. When I was a believer, that's exactly how I felt, right? When I was a believer, I thought that the most important thing was holding on to faith, regardless of doubt, right? That was, every doubt was a challenge from Lucifer to try to get me to faith, right? The things, and I guess different things have different effects on different people. But when I came out, one of the things that started to nudge me was that I was always under the impression that the only reason that I had doubts was because I had talked to the wrong priest, right? I'd read the wrong passage in the Bible. I'd misunderstood a mistranslation of a passage somewhere. That there was an answer to all of these things, right? And I think that whether or not that answer exists is not the point, right? Whether or not a God exists sometimes isn't the point. But just believing that there is that answer out there somewhere is enough. Well, I don't know that in the end we are going to be able to isolate ourselves away from believers. I think we have to have some way of reaching out and finding ways to work together. The radical right-wing Christians, I've never really met one. Not in real life, right? I mean, I see them on TV, right? But like real people, right? When I started the roundtable, one of the things I thought I was going to do was get to talk to believers on the show, and I didn't get to talk to many. A couple of times I got to talk to actual, like, real humans, right? Not pastors, not ministers, not apologists, just people, right? Most of the people that believe already have wishy-washy ideas of their religion, right? You get 3 normal Christians in a room, right? Have them talk about God, and there will be 4 different definitions of God in the room. There'll be and the one that they all came up with together as a group, right? Because there's nothing real, right, that they can fall back on. So they're going to make something up. But I just, normal people, I think we can appeal to easily. Atheism, I think, is hopeful. I think it is. I think that it brings hope to the table, right? That if the tagline for my show is that God isn't here, we are, right? We can be the magical man in the sky that comes down and fixes stuff. We can do that. We can't do it individually. We have to do it together. And I think that we can do that together, and we get off our knees and roll up our sleeves.
Okay, let's take that angle, Andrew. Let's take that angle, and if we say we can do this, which, by the way, I'm convinced we're the only ones going to do anything, right? Just like how your tagline stated, which I love, by the way. I did see that. There's no God here. There's just us, or whatever. That's it, man. Like I'm right there with you. And I wish everybody was on board with that, because for all we've ever known or could see, it's been us, at least as far as I know, right? So the fact that theists, especially with your salvation religions, like Christianity and the Abrahamic faiths, that's already accomplished for them. They already had a savior do it all, right? Through thick and thin, their savior will do anything to save them. He loves them so much. Never mind the hell part. Never mind the fact that the majority of humans are known by Christians, or by Christians, to have their eternal destiny in hell, because broad is the way that leads to destruction, and narrow is the path, that unto righteousness. So there's that. But the ones that are in the Christian faith that believe that theology anyways count themselves as the ones who are saved. But this ultimate goal, this ultimate hope has already been done for them. And what happens to a child when you raise a child up and you do everything for that child, and you never teach that child any kind of responsibility? Do they grow up and then all of a sudden become a responsible human being and thinking socially and thinking communally? I think the answer is no, and I think that that's probably what happens with Christians, maybe in some sense. And I think that might also be some sort of theme in your blog post, The Temptation of Heaven. Do you remember that? It was back in 2013.
Yes. So I was thinking that. So I know that there are Christians who put up with suffering in this life for the chance of salvation in the next, right? We know that there are people who push aside things that might better this life, right, in the hopes that they're going to store up riches or treasures in heaven. Nothing depresses me more than hearing that people are storing treasures in heaven.
Yeah.
Nothing breaks my heart more than hearing that there's another crown in their, or there's another jewel in their crown in heaven. When I'm confronted with that, I like to try to ask people why they need to wait for heaven, right? Look, I think this life is important, right? And I think that believers think that this life is important too. I think that we should be able all to agree this life is super important. I don't think that you get to, and it saddens me when people think that the importance of this life is diminished by some mystical afterlife. That kills me.
And it doesn't do them any favors when we stomp on their dream of heaven, right? So what's one thing we could replace that with? And if we're gonna stomp on their dream of heaven, what do we give them? Let's brainstorm right now. I'm gonna throw out one.
Give this life, right? This is the life. This is not a dress rehearsal. This is it. These are the years, right? This is the time. There is no better time than now. And everybody agrees that the best time is now. Okay, maybe not now, but kind of when someone who's in their 50s is asked what's the best decade of their life, they will almost always reply their 50s. Someone in their 40s will say someone in their 80s will generally say their 80s, because it's now, right? Now is the time. And I get it. All right, there's a lot. Oh my gosh, there's so much that we have to fix. Hopefully soon. If anyone's watching, go vote.
Yeah.
Crying out loud, just vote. Just vote. I don't want to hear any. Just vote. There's so much that's broken that we have to fix, but the time to fix it is now. The way, and there isn't any. The thing that we give them is now, right? This is the greatest thing that you give someone back when you take away heaven, is you give them back their whole life, or what's left of it, I guess. And every day, one day, should be worth it, right? To be able to live your way, the way that you need to live, to be. I can't imagine how someone who has been marginalized by the church, right? And goodness gracious, there's so many people who get marginalized by churches. Just pick one. Can't imagine having to live in that marginalized section and stay a part of that group because you're terrified of what's coming in the next life. I can't imagine what that must be like for people.
Let's flip that then. Let's flip that right now, Andrew. Sorry, let me interrupt you here. So let's imagine, Andrew, you and I. Cool. All right, so Andrew, you and I, we walk through these gates into a cult, right? Like one of those paradise cults, all right? One that just sprung up. By the way, paradise cults is an actual term. I think Mormons there's two of them, I think, that still exist, and Mormons is like the biggest one. But anyways, I won't go into that. But Andrew, you and I lock arms, we walk through these gates, and we're in this paradise cult. The only problem is, it's a lot like what you might imagine. Sure, people look very healthy and happy, and probably, in some real sense, they are. But it doesn't come without all these rules. You know, so there's all these rules and all these experiences that you and I can never engage in, even if we're biologically designed to do so. And since we do have some knowledge of the past before, with how people live and how they pursue their daily happiness and all that sort of stuff, we actually know that there's more to the world out there and a lot more happiness to be gained, rather than doing this suffering thing, which stops a lot of the glory from suffering idea. where we'll gain in the next life as long as we suffer in this one. So what would we gain, Andrew, if you and I were in these cults right now, or just religions that have all these rules to stop us? What would we gain if we said, you know what, I'm going to step out of this religion and I'm just going to go be me? How would you describe what that difference is? Because somebody right now is in that religion and they're thinking what it's like on the outside. And by the way, if anybody picked up at this point, Andrew and I have been there. We were Christians, hardcore. So now we're going to describe the experience coming out and what we gain.
I never thought that ignorance is bliss, right? That was just something that I never bought into. I don't think that you're better off not knowing, ever, right? I think that people's power, that people's agency comes from informed choices, right? That's how we're able to enact on our agency. That's the only way that we really can. Otherwise, if it's an uninformed choice, right, we've been manipulated because we haven't been given all the information, right? The only time we get to actually employ our agency, for good or bad, right? Because goodness, I have made so many bad decisions of my own agency, but they're mine. And a lot of times, I learn the best lessons by making super poor choices.
Yeah.
I couldn't even begin to describe so many, but those are mine, and I get to do them. And now I get to, if that scenario ever arises again, I get to try to do it better because I have more knowledge, I have more experience. I don't think ignorance is bliss. I think that I know it's hard to try. Look, voting, right? Like, there are a lot of people on my ballot, right? A lot of people there, and I have to go. It's hard. I have to go and I have to research all the people. I can't just take their ads on TV. I need to go and actually find out what these people stand for and what they don't stand for. And that's hard and tedious. And I don't like any of these people. No, I don't like, but I've got to vote. So I've got to be able to make decisions, and the only way I can do that is with information. And just doing a blank or a full party ticket, whatever that is, that even if that's effectively what I end up doing, that might be what I did. I'm never going to just do a straight party ticket. I'm always going to select individuals, and if I ended up selecting all of one party, well, that's because those were the people that I selected, not because of party, but because of candidacy.
So do I understand you correctly, Andrew, when you say ignorance is not the way? You don't go the way where you're being manipulated and told the grass isn't greener on the other side. Don't even check it out. Don't even check it out. Stay here, everybody. Stay here. Nobody look at the other side. If you look at the other side, we're going to call you an apostate up front until you come back. You know, you're saying that that's not the way. You're saying that we should be the person who checks over the other side and takes that peek, makes an evaluation, and then maybe even goes down on the other side and see what's going on there. And then maybe that person comes back to their fold and says, you know what, it's not that bad. It's a little scary because it's challenging. It's a little scary because it's new. It's a little scary because I know you all hate it. But I think it's worth it. There's something there. You're saying that that's what we should do.
When I was a believer, and every doubt was a temptation from Lucifer, at one point I thought to myself, man, Lucifer's the most evil thing ever. All right? If I peek behind the curtain and see Lucifer, I think I ought to be able to recognize ultimate evil, right? All I have to do is peek, and I'm going to be able to recognize this ultimate evil Because he's the ultimate evil.
Yeah.
Giving yourself permission to take that peek, man, you will recognize ultimate evil if you see it. What if you don't?
Yeah, what a cliffhanger right there. What if you don't? What if you do take that peek over the hill, right? You're like, hey, maybe my guys were wrong. Maybe it's not just right over this hill. Maybe it's further because I'm not sensing any danger down there. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to go a little bit further. And I'm going to see if I can find ultimate evil. But Andrew, I think that journey, as far as you and I are concerned, we've just kept walking, I think, and we haven't found this ultimate evil anywhere. This apostate mentality where we're just so guilt-ridden and full of hate, and all we want to do is sin and disobey and reject God, simply isn't the ethos of curiosity, knowledge, imagination, those things which, by demonstration, have served to progress humanity, rather than stagnate it. The thing which has stagnated it has been those persons who said, discovery is of Satan, curiosity is of Satan, knowledge, when it's placed over faith, is of Satan. Did you experience that in your religious culture?
All the time, right? So I mentioned before that I was always convinced that that the only reason I was having these doubts was because I just didn't know enough. I started taking extra Catholic classes that my mother was when I asked for extra Catholic classes, right? You can imagine. So she started having them in my house, right? And it was, at first, it was amazing. I mean, I'm the most bug-eyed person in the room listening. Yeah. But one day, the dude said something that that I could go look up in an encyclopedia. See, back then we had encyclopedias at the library, right? Because we didn't have the internet, because I'm old, okay? But I wrote it down, and then I went to the library, and I looked it up in the Encyclopedia Britannica, because that was a thing. And I did a little math, and this guy's figures didn't add up. This guy was so, because the claim was that you could fit the entire world's population into a landmass the size of Texas and have a population density no greater than that of New York City, right? That's a super Catholic claim.
Yeah.
That overpopulation is a myth. But the size of the world, the population, the landmass of Texas, the population density of New York City, all of these are easily, super easy today. I had to go to a book to look them up back in the day. But those kinds of things were easy to validate. If you're willing to lie to me about things that I can look up at my library, how do I know that what you're telling me about angels that I can't look at the library is true? How am I going to be able to know? Because I wanted to know, not just believe.
Yeah.
I wanted to know God was real, that Jesus was my Savior, and that I was going to go to heaven. I wanted to be able to know that. When some atheist came up to me, I was going to blast him out of the water. That did not turn out the way I thought it would.
Yeah, right? Is that something universal among people who deconvert? Is that they go along a path of actual discovery of facts and how those facts tell a more plausible story than the one which faith handed them, and they considered the value of each, and then they went with the one where, facts told the more plausible story, and then they found themselves, just like you and I, deconverted. Whereas those who may have accepted that challenge up front, but then declined actually going through it, those are the persons, let me generalize here, who aren't very comfortable discussing the facts of their position. They only value faith. Is that a good? Are those good distinguishing traits on either side?
Yeah. Well, at some point, it shouldn't take a whole lot for you to find cracks in faith, right? I don't know of a single believer who's never had a crisis of faith, right? I think everybody does. What do you do with that, right? What do you do when you suddenly realize, well, wait a minute, the three resurrections or the four resurrection stories in the Bible don't all add up. Wait a minute, what do I do with that? Right? You have to do something with it. And when I was a believer, what I would do with it was accept that, well, you know, if you touch an elephant on four different parts, they all kind of look the same, right? The tree, the snake, and whatever the heck else. You're all touching the truth. And just like that, the four Gospels are touching the truth. If what you believe is more important than believing the truth, then that's what you're going to value, right? I don't know how to convince someone that they have to value what's real. You know, I don't know how to convince someone that they have to, that knowing things based on facts and evidence is a good thing. Especially when you're going, you know, when I deconverted, man, it was not a happy time, right?
Yeah.
It was not a happy time to lose faith. That was devastating in many ways. One of the reasons I don't like deconverting other people is because, man, I don't know that I'd wish that on someone. But, but if I don't think this is bliss, and I at least have to tell them about it. I at least have to say it's not as bad. And if we build the communities that we need, and maybe it won't be so bad for the next person.
I hear you. All right, Andrew, let's pause there and let's go over to the live feed and see what is going on over there. Heat Shield, there you are, man. Jim McCauley. I'm going to stick to that until Jim McCauley tells me to say otherwise. Brian Stevens, so sweet. I hope I'm saying that right. So sweet. Looks like that kind of pun right there. Beach, how's everybody doing? All right, I'm going to pick a couple of comments out and see what people are talking about. Most atheists, Jim McCauley says, most atheists were of some sort of belief at one time. That's just a fact. Okay, sounds reasonable to me that we were all influenced at some point with at least a religious worldview, and we evaluated that whether we turned out atheist or not. What do you think, Andrew?
The most passionate atheists I know were once believers, right? And I think part of it is that we have to recognize that while we were believers, we may have said or done some pretty naughty things, some pretty nasty things. I remember in high school telling a friend of mine that she was going to burn in hell because she had premarital sex. Man, and I eventually got to apologize to her, but at the time, I thought I was being a friend, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot that I have to make up for doing things during that time, for going to pro-life rallies and thinking that abortion was murder for so many years. That and you know, I think that's part of it. When the people that you're most likely to see talking about atheism are people who used to be believers, because we really wanted it to be true. I mean, there was a time when I needed it to be true. It's just like those stages of grief, right, where there's bargaining, and it felt that way when I lost my faith. It felt like the death of a loved one. It felt like God died. And I think that that's part of why we feel the need to help other people heal from that trauma, because it wasn't fun.
No, it wasn't. No, yep, you're exactly right there. Beej says, I didn't become an atheist until my 50s. And let me see. I stumbled, So Sweet says, I stumbled on a Christopher Hitchens video. I never felt such a jolt of consciousness. What an interesting remark there. I never felt such a jolt of consciousness. So if anybody doesn't know, Christopher Hitchens is just this amazing counter-apologist, like, for fun. He's no longer alive, but You can find his videos all over YouTube. Like I've watched a few, and I mean, they're just he does it so effortlessly, as though it's a side thought to kind of debunk the things that even theologians use to credit Christianity or Catholicism, which is we'll just call that Christianity as well, because that's where Protestant all came from. But so Sweet says, I never felt such a jolt of consciousness. What do you think the jolt of consciousness is referring to, Andrew?
So the first time I ever saw Christopher Hitchens, it was on Penn and Teller's bullshit episode, and he was bad-mouthing Mother Teresa. He was calling Mother Teresa all kinds of things that they had to believe. All right, and I, at the time, was under the impression that Mother Teresa was a saint. She was the most kind, giving, generous person ever, right? Look at what she's done. She's so amazing. And Christopher Hitchens was telling me that this person, not only not the person I thought she was, but was a monster. A monster. That was my introduction to Hitchens, and that is a shock to consciousness if I ever had one. Come to find out, that man was right. He wasn't lying. It didn't take but a quick Google search to find out that he wasn't just rattling off stuff just to be mean. No, he knew what he was talking about. He was right.
So Christopher Hitchens maybe is famous or infamous, depending on from which community you're viewing him, for presenting something that's just basically maybe something we've never heard, or said in a way we've never heard it said. And that causes us to almost instantly evaluate our own position. I think I may have seen a Hitchens video once or twice when I was a Christian. And I think if I had an opinion, the only opinion at that time towards atheist activists was, what's wrong with these guys? Like, when are they so angry? They're kind of not even talking about anything. You know, it sounds like they're just giving their own opinion or perspective. And you dismiss it just as easily because you're counting it as an opinion. But in actuality, like, we're giving the same defense for a God who does commit genocide in the Old Testament for ridiculous reasons. And then we excuse it by saying, holiness is something to behold, and who can understand that? And if somebody's going to kill somebody, the only person that has the authority to either do it or decree it so is the giver of life himself, But anyways, let's see what a couple other people have to say. Jim McCauley said I said his name right. You're welcome, man. I'm glad I got it. Beach Price says I was horrid when I was a Seventh-day Adventist. It took a long time to forgive myself for it. Yeah. So Andrew, you were talking about how you told somebody they were going to hell because of premarital sex. Second, why is sex like the most taboo thing?
Well, because you're literally grabbing them by their genitals, right? I mean, because if you can control someone's most basic instinct, most primal instinct to want to have sex, you can control anything, right? If someone's going to allow someone else to tell them who they can and cannot love, and why they can and cannot love someone else, all tithing becomes second nature.
Yeah. Makes sense. What we got here? All right, a lot of that looks good. What's up, He Shield? What's up, B? So sweet. All right, thanks, guys, for hanging out over into the live feed. Man, I think I had another question for you that I wanted to ask. Let me see where I found it at. Oh, no, we already discussed that. Why does religion make me so happy? I was going off of earlier podcasts that you had. Hey, so, all right. I'm going to say the thing that bothers me right now with my religious community that I came from, and Andrew, I'll give you a chance to talk about maybe a religious community that you're familiar with that you see trending right now. Right now, what I see trending is not something unusual. It's the God heal me, pray for healing. You know, I'm in the hospital right now, or I have a fever, or my grandpa just had cancer, and that sort of thing. And not to bemoan one's method of coping using their own value system, not to do that. But as someone who finds myself in the majority category that doesn't share their belief, their specific belief, it saddens me to see that the destiny of their loved ones or their own is in the hands of something that, if it's to go bad, will offer no explanation as to why. That's what I hate seeing, because I kind of want to come in there and be like, man, this is why medical science is important. This is why research is important. This is why stem cell is important. Because what I find is the miracle formula, when something does happen good, the miracle formula goes like this. This bad thing happened. There's the middle part. And then they come back at the end when they say the whole thing out loud anyways. And they're like, oh, and then this good thing happened. But when you ask about the middle, that piece of the formula is always ambiguous, vague, because they've declared it a miracle already. So they can't explain that part to you. I don't think any part of our audience watching right now misunderstands what I just said. I think everybody completely understands that. So we'll just go over to you, Andrew. What is kind of one of your pet peeves or something? What's going on over there?
Yeah. So faith healing has always been one of my hot buttons, right? My wife had cancer a few years ago, and the amount of woo that we got bombarded with from people who totally wanted to help, from people who really wanted to offer support and care, was staggering and just horrifying. I get that people do need to cope. I get that it's hard and scary and it sucks, because cancer sucks.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know that wishing to the cancer fairy is that therapeutic. I mean, is it really that therapeutic to just wish to the cancer fairy? I don't think that it is. I think that understanding medical procedures and processes, talking to doctors and understanding what's going on, I think that is very therapeutic. That really helped me cope with what was going on. The thing that gets me just today, that bothers me most, is the treatment of the LGBT community. I can't believe we're having this conversation in 2018. I really thought that we had gotten past all this nonsense, right?
Yeah.
I thought that we had gotten past the idea of gender-specific bathroom bills and that you have to go into the bathroom of your assigned gender. I thought we moved past that. And if something has been made super clear to me recently by my Facebook feed, is that we haven't. I get it. All right, people who are different than you are scary. All right, I get it. They don't become more scary when you get to know them, right? When you get to talk to somebody who's in the LGBTQIA community.
Yeah.
Talk to somebody. They're just people. And we need to demarginalize people, not to find more people to marginalize.
Yeah.
That's why you vote, right? Just to hit that button again. Vote.
There you go. All right. So hey, let's make this a challenge to our audience that sees this video. Find somebody this week that you normally wouldn't talk to, and just communicate with them somehow, no matter what it is. If it's just a, hey, what's up? Or, hey, can I hold the door for you? Or strike up a conversation on the street or in the elevator, something like that. And this person doesn't even have to be, you know, like super weird all the way to the left or whatever. Maybe it's somebody that's like ultra conservative and to the right, and you're kind of looking at that person like, that person's probably a douche, or they're probably too bougie for me, or, you know, whatever like that. I think these things too, you know, especially if we're dressed a certain way. Sometimes I'm out in basketball shorts. To people that look super nice, want somebody in basketball shorts to skateboard right up next to them on the side of the street while we're waiting to cross, and be like, yo, what's up, man? I hope you're having a good day. You know, they might be like, says who? But there's a challenge, and then just see what that happens and see if you get a sense of kind of community after that. Now, this might not go the way you necessarily want it to, but try it out, because I do this sometimes with just striking up conversations with people that I otherwise know I wouldn't. And I have been remarkably surprised by some of the things that I've struck up with people just like that. So that's Fully Deconverted's, Arael and Andrew's challenge to everybody out there this week. Strike up some sort of communication with somebody you normally wouldn't, given your situation, and see if you have some community there, and see where that leads you. That's it, Andrew. We can say goodbye to our guests and cue our ending sequence. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in and watching this. Thanks, Andrew, for coming on the show. If our audience out there likes what they've seen, hit that like and subscribe button. We'll continue to bring you great content. We're trying to make this better each time we do it with some of the systems that we got in place. If you like Andrew and the Atheist Roundtable, and you support him and what he stands for and what he does, hit the like button as well and go find him. Links are in the description here. And with that, Andrew, tell our audience goodbye.
Listen here, we are. Take care of yourselves.
See you later, everybody.